Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the MACC Policy Board meeting for April 23rd, 2018 at the Olive Township Hall. Before we get into the agenda, I know some of you need to leave on the earlier side by 1 o'clock. I think there's a Michigan Township meeting, so what we're going to do is try to focus on getting through the items that need votes first, and then rearrange some of the non-voting agenda items towards the end. So, just for the record, we'll start out with introductions. Always catch somebody with at the right time. Steve Redmond with MDOT.
John Kleinaxel, Allegheny County Road Commission.
Howard Bauman, Port Sheldon Township.
Todd Walters, Olive Township.
Kevin Kleinstra, City of Zeeland.
Glenn Nykamp, Zeeland Township.
Terry Hoffmeyer, Laketown Township.
Tom Bird, Ottawa Road Commission.
Jim Story, Allegheny County Board of Commissioners.
David Vangenhoven, at-large member.
Gerald Huntsberger, Park Township.
Ken DeWeer, Fillmore Township.
Nancy DeBoer, City of Holland.
Russ Teslau with the MACC Authority Board.
Bill Bauman, Ottawa County Commissioner.
Elisa Hookwater with the MACC.
Pankaj Rajadhesh with the MACC.
Carolyn Alstead with the MACC.
Rob Hank with the MACC.
Okay. And I believe that should be everybody here today. The other item that we need to do is just the approval of minutes from our March 26th meeting. If there's no changes or corrections, motion.
Move we accept the minutes as presented.
Okay, Jerry, second. Okay, Terry, second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. We don't have any members of the public, so there's nobody to comment there or invite for comments. Next item on the agenda, I believe this was something we were going to try to cover last meeting on March 26th, but didn't have a quorum. So, Lisa, if you want to just detail what you were asking for, that'd be great.
Sure, I'd be glad to. Thank you. And thank you all for coming. I know that many of you had other events scheduled that conflicted with this meeting. This is an important action item, and last month we had to postpone it because we didn't have quorum. So thanks for taking the time to be here. What I'm going to do is simply highlight some of the notes that Steve had left regarding this process. And there was in your packet, there's a memorandum which highlights some of the changes, and primarily it's changing the committee structure for the executive committee. So the first item that's been changed is that the committee will be a 7-member committee. In addition to that, the committee will contain at least one city township participant, at least one county participant, at least one transportation participant, and at least one at-large representative. So the only proposed changes to the bylaws reflect this composition on page 2, and that's Article 6 for officers on page 4.
And a lot of these, I think we had all been through multiple times and study sessions and so forth, and I believe the final copies were all passed to you. My understanding of how that's supposed to work is if 2/3 of us approve it here, then you still have to go to your individual townships or local units of government, and that has to be approved by a 2/3 vote there. If I sort of remember correctly, but anyway. So, is there anything else you want to cover?
There was one additional,
Okay.
the text regarding the member agreement, paragraph 5, organization and administration of the MACC basically is changed to reflect that. So basically cleaning up the bylaws so that reflects it cleanly. And that's all.
Okay. If there's no objections, can get a motion to approve that here. Okay. Terry, support. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right. The next item on the agenda was going to be some watershed project updates, but I think we're going to jump into the transportation programs because that involves a couple things that need to be approved. And Elisa?
Okay, thank you. The first thing I wanted to alert you to is that there have been a few modifications to the tip. And at your place setting, there's a new memorandum with a project that was not in the packet. This project is 196, and it's from Byron Road to 32nd Avenue. The project has 2 phases, so PE, design and construction. And the way this has been presented, it is actually going to be an amendment because of the amount of the funding. And Federal Highway Administration has requested that this project basically be split between the MACC and Grand Valley Metro Council because the project is to be in both of our tips. So that's a modification that must be through an amendment. So it's being presented it's a request of MDOT to make that change. And then on the back side of the memorandum, these projects you've all seen before. The first one is the Zealand project, which is BL 196, and it has multiple elements to it. What you see here breaks it into 3 elements with comments in the note section. And then lastly, MDOT has 3 safety projects that have been added. They're all rail crossing projects. These are to be added to the fiscal year 18 program. And the last item on the memo is the West Washington Avenue roundabout construction. And this is to be added to the fiscal year 19 program. So quite a bit. And as you know, Steve has handled the tip the 10 years that I've worked at the MACC, so I've had a new learning opportunity. But there are a lot of important pieces that have to be handled properly, and that's the reason you're getting all of these pieces today, including the 196 Byron Road project for action.
Steve, did you want to add anything to any of these? Or any explanations?
Well, I think Elisa did a good job highlighting what these are, but to just maybe piggyback on it a little bit. The I-196 is one in the spring where we had some potholing that got real bad with the type of winter that we had. So we did some quick maintenance to allow traffic to use it, but this is to come back and to go after it in a more serious way. What we're really doing is we're using our capital preventive maintenance program to do repairs on this that will extend the life of this patch of freeway so that next year, if the same conditions occur or something along the same lines, that we have this fix in place that will take place this summer that will keep that road usable, and so we won't have to go back and do quick maintenance to mess with potholes in the spring. The second one, the BL 196, M121, Chicago Drive. This is one that's been talked about for a long time. It's had a lot of stakeholders involved from the communities like Zealand Township, as well as corporations like Granger and Zealand Food Services. So this brought a bunch of different money from a bunch of different funds to try to get at operational issues out there at that location. So think this one's been talked about quite a bit, so that's really all it is. And then the only thing I say about the safety projects is that these were awarded. This program to fix safety at railroad crossings or different types of fixes around them is something we reward after a call for projects or examination of different issues. So it's just an announcement of that. So I tried to say it as quickly as I can. That's really what it's all about in terms of the MDOT projects.
And so, Lisa, you need a motion to amend the 17 to 2020 tip?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. And,
All right. The next item is the multiple pieces to performance.
Okay, good.
All right, so I wanted to let all of you know that last month we had transportation performance management on our agenda, and I presented to you a strategy that I believe will accommodate the federal requirements that we amend both our TIP and our long-range transportation plan to include language about performance measures and targets. But what I was recommending last month is that we include a progress report as an appendix item that then we can swap out as things change. And so what you have before you is a progress report that is a sample, but it also has information that will be inserted into the LRTP, the Long Range Transportation Plan, and the TIP. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure you saw the product that we talked about last month. It was designed to take some technical material and present it in an easy to comprehend manner. And future progress reports will be done in a similar manner, and we will be able to, it can stand alone. We can give it to the public and explain what our performance measures are, how we're addressing them. And the nice thing is we can update that and then exchange it as we need to in the document. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of what we're proposing. And then the documents themselves will have to be changed. So last month we took the TIP document and I gave you the page numbers where we were planning on making some revisions. This month we have the LRTP, and both documents will include this as an appendix. So that's what we're proposing today. And before I go on, I just wanted to know if there were any questions about the progress report or kind of our strategy. Tom?
I have a question on investment priorities and performance targets. 1, 2, 3, page 4. There's a statement there about a total of $13 million is to be invested in safety projects in 2018. Could you give us an idea of what those are?
Yeah, well, this was developed, fortunately we had the information that we just approved for the TIP. So the funding that you see reflects these 3 safety projects that have been added to our TIP document. And last month we approved a table which had some additional fields. One of those was safety. So all of the funding that goes towards safety we get credit for, and we can actually use as an example of how we're addressing safety. So financially, we're able to show that we're linking investments to our measures. Perfect example of that. But in addition to that, we also have other programs that we are implementing, and we're addressing safety. And so that language is also included on page 2.
So the $7 or $8 million for the Business Loop 196 obviously is targeted towards improving traffic flow and safety. if we repave a road, the B-line, would that be considered a safety project, or is that maintenance?
So part of what you're asking me has to do with the funding sources as well. And so a basic resurfacing, we're not addressing safety, though severe potholes, that's something we certainly want to address. So it depends on the project and it depends on the funding.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
No, I didn't know, we were gonna put this on there, or?
Let's see. All right, so this is actually the next item.
Okay.
So any other questions on the progress report and the fact that we're using this as an appendix item, but it also is going to be the text is included in the document itself. All right. All right, so the next item that I wanted to walk through is these are some requirements in the federal regs. And as I mentioned earlier, we have to be able to demonstrate progress that we're making towards achieving our targets. So Tom's question about funding is a perfect example of how we can easily show our communities that we are addressing safety, for example. We know safety funds that are being used for the projects, we can demonstrate with a dollar figure the amount of money that has been spent to address safety. We'll do that similarly for additional targets as we adopt them. And then in addition to that, so we have to be able to show how we're linking investments to our targets. This gets to a larger topic, and you'll find out in coming months as we bring additional targets to you that will have new data sources that we'll be using. And with that data, we'll also need to demonstrate how we're addressing the targets. So pavement's another one that's coming, and we will not, we'll have some new rating methods that are required in the federal regs. So that's something that we have data from MDOT. We're working closely with them to acquire that data. And you're all familiar with PASER, which we use to rate roads. But what I'm basically telling you is that as we have new targets, we'll have new methods that we'll have to use to demonstrate that we're making progress. So we'll be learning as we go along, for sure. All right. And so basically what you see here is that the tip, and I'm going to actually stand up for this because it's a little bit easier to be able to walk through. So what we are presenting to you today is basically to revise the tip with this report card or progress report as an appendix item. And then in addition to that, we've got a list of targets that must be included and the deadlines when those each need to be incorporated. And I did want to let you know that John Lanham was not able to be here today, but he has, he wanted to make sure that you knew that this deadline has actually now been changed to October. So we're still going to work towards that July deadline. We've been working with MACC Transit to make sure that we incorporate transit asset management, but this needs to be in our long-range transportation plan and our TIP documents. All right, then I'm going to quickly go into the next segment, which is talking about the long-range transportation plan. And you'll see this slide is basically the same as the previous slide for the TIP. We have federal regs that are requiring that we show linking investments and being able to demonstrate progress towards our performance targets. So it's pages 38 that was copied for you, and that's directly out of our long-range transportation plan. So we've taken page 38, which addresses safety, and that will be, it will include page 2 from the progress report, and basically explaining why we're looking at safety and how we're planning on incorporating it and how we're planning on following up every year so that the community knows what we're doing. Similarly, on page 40, there's some additional language that will be talking about performance-based planning in general. And we're recommending that this also be included as an appendix item. So does anyone have any questions about the way that we're doing this or the reason? It's pretty straightforward. Okay, that's good, because that was our goal. I know that there's a lot that's been coming at us regarding performance-based planning, and our goal is to keep it as simple as possible and be able to update it in a regular manner.
And you need motions for some of these to be added to the TIP documents then?
Both the TIP document and the long-range transportation plan.
For 2040?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we need a motion to amend the 2017-2020 TIP to include the progress report as an appendix to the TIP document as shown in the staff memo dated April 13, 2018, going forward. I can get a motion. Okay, second? Support. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, and then for the 2040 long-range transportation plan, we need a motion to incorporate the proposed language regarding performance-based planning and programming and include the progress report in the appendix going forward as shown in the staff memo dated April 13, 2018, which is also in this package. So I can get a separate motion for that. Here, and second. All in favor? I'm sorry, go ahead, Tom has a question.
I'm a little confused. We're saying 2040, and part of our packet was a document for a 2045 long-range plan.
That's coming up next.
All in favor? Okay, any opposed? All right. And Elisa, it's still your show now with 5 years and further into the future.
All right, and I'm just going to give you a quick introduction, and then I'm going to pass it on to Carolyn. So yeah, you're seeing a lot, and today's agenda was packed. We have many items for the transportation program that we're working on, but we're actually, this is correct, 2045 long-range transportation plan is under development. And our goal is to complete it by December of 2019. Carolyn is going to, in just a moment, talk to you about the timeline. And that has actually been moved up. So to accommodate MDOT's modeling schedule and air quality analysis that's required now, that's something that we've had to accommodate. So I think I'm going to pass it on to Carolyn then, and then I'll be talking to you a bit about some of the socioeconomic data. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so like Elisa said, we just started some work with the 2045 LRTP. And so one of the first parts of that is creating the work plan timeline. So in your packet, it was the large ledger-sized, colorful timeline. And so just some background on how we eventually got to this as a final document. We first worked off of a template that MDOT created. So the bones of this look very similar to one that MDOT showed us about a year ago. And then that was really helpful because it had some of the MDOT tasks involved as well. Once we kind of did some preliminary editing and what we thought would be an appropriate timeline for certain tasks, we then sent it over to a few MDOT employees there, and then they looked at it based on their timelines and their schedules of when they'll probably be working through things in their office. So once they made some edits, we had a conference call with them and then discussed a little bit of those changes. Like Elisa said, the timeline at the end for the due date moved up about 6 months. So then after that call, Elisa and I sat down and went through every single item on this list to see then how we were going to make those adjustments. So then kind of in that middle range, because there are 7 different development tasks, and then so kind of with pretty much when you start to get into the bottom of the second with analyzing transportation systems and then into the performance needs, some of those things had to stack a little bit, so we'll be doing a lot at one time to accommodate that timeline. And I think we ended up being quite happy with it, and we feel like it's doable. But because it's kind of a difficult document to read because it's very tiny words, that's why we also included the 2045 work plan that was in your packet right after this, which is a more legible timeline. It does not have every single development task in it, but just the ones that we felt were kind of the main important pieces that really needed to be highlighted. And then there's more of a detailed description on those. And we also wanted to give this to you because this timeline also does include some pieces that have a policy component where certain things may need to be voted on or we just want you to be aware of. So that's definitely the user-friendly version, and this is just our broad overview color-coded timeline. I think that's about it with those. Do you think of anything else you wanted to add?
That's great.
Okay. All right. And that's also a voting item, so I'm going to head back so I can record that.
Are there any questions about the timeline, the work plan? I know you've all looked through each line item very carefully, but if not, just need a motion to approve the timeline and work plan as included in the staff memo dated April 13, 2018. David, support. Nancy, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you for the work, both of you. I'm sure that took a little bit to put together, so yeah, appreciate that. And then I think you had some socioeconomic data you wanted to share with the group?
I do. Yeah, so as you can see, there's a lot of coordinating. We've been coordinating with MDOT's modeling staff, with MDOT's air quality staff, and what you have before you in the next item is socioeconomic data for the base year 2015. And the reason it's come before you today as an action item is that MDOT would like action to approve the data so that we can then forecast future employment, households, and population through the year 2045. Our technical committee has already reviewed this data. In fact, members of the technical committee had a pretty hefty homework assignment. Okay. And they had the joy of reviewing all the employers listed within their townships for the year 2015. So I thank all of you who are sitting at this table that wear 2 hats, that you've helped us to make sure that data is accurate. And again, I want to just point out to you that this is a tool that we will then use to look at what future patterns are within our region. And the reason this is important is that it then will help us identify which roadways are potentially congested and where improvements may need to be made. And it will also be looking at multiple modes. So we will look at we'll be looking at the entire transportation network as part of our long-range transportation plan. So basically, you have a table before you for each member, and this information has been reviewed and updated, and simply want to present it to you for approval today.
So this is 2015 data. That's the latest available then?
Correct.
Okay. And what does it mean when we say group quarters?
Okay, so I believe that is group quarters would be for like Hope College, or for larger, not individual households. So not just Hope College, but any type of group housing.
And there's no income information that flows into this data then?
There's no income information.
Like average per, well, since we're talking about social economic, I was wondering if there was some average household income or anything that goes into this.
It will be part of the conversation, but not part of the modeling.
Okay.
Question, on the group quarters again, it's not a big deal, but how can you get so much in one and so little in another when you're all more or less rural?
So is there a specific example?
Well, and I don't really care. Zeeland's got 40 and Olive Township's got 354.
Yeah. You know, I'm happy to ask MDOT some additional questions about that. I believe it's, it's based on the population data that they have, the number of group homes there are in the community.
RV parks?
Pardon?
Parks, mobile home parks?
That's possible. I'll look into that one for you.
Because we've got 3 of those.
Sure. Yeah.
Olive College is
So what it is that we're ultimately going to be looking at is the estimated population and the estimated household data. The group quarters, I think that's really more of a bonus piece that was put in there. And unfortunately, I can't answer that with as much detail as I'd like, but I'm happy to report back on that one.
Okay. Any more questions for Elisa or Carolyn? No. Okay. So one more motion here to approve the 2015 base year data to be used in the MACC travel demand model is noted in the staff memo dated April 13, 2018. I can get a motion. Okay, second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, thank you, Elisa. And I think you're still up next.
I still am. One more item for your attention. This is not an action item, but I did want to let you know that we put together a list of tasks for the Unified Work Program for this next year. And in your packets, you'll see a list of tasks that we've proposed. There is one item that you'll see will be completed. We have additional funding through the fiscal year. The Downtown Holland Traffic Circulation Study was added to our UWP, if you recall, and that project will be completed within the fiscal year, so we will not be working on that next year. And I did want to point out to you as well that when Steve Bultice and I met with Federal Highways and with MDOT, they presented to us a list of requirements that they wanted to see in the UWP. So the tasks will reflect the requirements that you see on the cover page regarding performance-based planning and programming again, and just making sure that we are communicating with the public in an easy to understand manner. Does anyone have any questions? This is presented for you to comment on. And normally we would just, we want you to know that this is an opportunity for you to comment. Next month you will see the final UWP with the narrative for all of our tasks.
Okay. If there's no questions, then I think we'll move to the Green Commute Week. Carolyn and Elise, I believe, will be covering that.
All right. So Green Commute Week is May 13th through the 19th. And what we did want to let you know today is that we have posters for each of you to take back with you. And this program has been slightly revised so that if you choose to work from home one day that week, you can count your miles. So telecommuting is something we're finding many employers are doing, and their miles saved certainly count towards this. And then, as you know, one of the benefits of the program is that at the end of the week, we're able to total up all those miles, and we can actually do some calculations to show what the air quality benefits are. So I wanted to make sure that you all knew that. Another option as well is if you have an electric vehicle, you can also count those miles. So that's new and different this year. Again, carpooling is a wonderful way. We at the MACC carpool quite a bit. You can also walk and bike and use transit. So I encourage you all to record your miles. You can sign up on the MACC website. It's easy to do, and you can also get a number of discounts at local businesses if you participate. So, and also wanted to say to MACC's Transit, you have free rides during the week, thanks to MACC's.
You get the green button.
You have to sign up and get a green commute pen, right?
Buses can be pushing the buses.
They'll be full, hopefully.
In next week to present.
Yep, and that's all I had for today.
Okay.
And we do have posters, so if you want to bring a poster back with you to your township hall or your road to court commissions, how's that?
Great. Well, thank you both, and I think, Steve, you're up next, if you have anything to share from MDOT.
Just a quick note, the program, the project we talked about earlier, the one I-196 from 32nd to Byron.
Yep.
That project came, like I said, out of our capital preventive maintenance program, and that's a big portion of what we use every year to extend life of our roads. This year, we're going to do approximately 1,300 miles of that on freeways and 370 miles of non-freeway that we use all that money for. And it's a really important fund because it allows us some flexibility. Like I said, forecasting those potholes out at that section of I-196 was not something that we were able to do, but once it came upon us, we had the flexibility with this, what's called the CPM program, to flex money around to address these kind of things as they come up. So that's certainly helpful in extending the life of pavement for us. And just to make a note, because a lot of times I think that it's not bad to come back and revisit how much we're spending. You know, statewide, the CPM is part of our total preservation program. And statewide, we're going to spend $1.6 billion this year working to preserve our roads. The roads that are already there, and that doesn't include the stuff that we're doing that's called improve and expand, where we're adding lanes or we're modernizing freeways like we're doing to some of those in Detroit right now. This is taking the infrastructure that we have and preserving it. And that's how much we're going to spend this year. And I think it's worth noting once in a while just to show the level of investment that's being made by the state of Michigan on its transportation system.
Steve, are you going to do both eastbound and westbound from 32nd to Byron?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Because I know westbound has been worse.
Right, that's the one that got us the headlines.
Yep.
But we're going to work to avoid that this year.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. very quickly, I think what we'll do is jump around a little bit here. Jerry, if you don't mind giving us an update on the search committee, what we've done so far. Then once you're done with that, I'll bring Carolyn back in for what we skipped her for.
First of all, we got a great committee. We got 6 people. Yourself. We got Jim Story, Kevin Terry, David Van Ginhoven. Good cross-section. To be honest, the Ottawa County Human Resource Department is our go-to people. They've been extremely helpful. They set up an application process online. Applications have been coming through for the last 3 weeks. The deadline is this Friday or until filled is the way the posting, and you saw the recruitment profile document. We met this morning, and Todd, thank you for allowing us to use your conference room before this meeting. That worked out really well. A lot of issues to work out relative to timing, who's doing what, background checks, questions to be asked, locations of interviews. That'll all be coming together in the next 3 or 4 weeks. We intend to give you an update. Obviously, the names of the candidates we're keeping very confidential out of respect to them in the process. We will be meeting in a couple weeks. We've got a schedule to agree on those that will be interviewed and some preliminary background checks before their names are made public to make sure we're not embarrassed. Once the interviews are done, the committee will be looking, by the way, you will be informed when the interviews will take place, where they'll be taking place, because you probably didn't realize it, but you're also on the committee, okay? We talked about that this morning, and I'm serious, we'd like to have you, if you can, attend the interviews. I think we got 6 great people on the committee, but the fact is, more perspective is better. And ultimately, the recommendation of that committee comes to this body for approval, and we respect that. And of course, any job offer to a finalist would be contingent upon a lot of things, including approval by the MACC policy. And that probably is about all we can get into at this point, unless anybody on the committee wants to add something.
Question, Jerry, do you have a plan to present a single candidate to the board or multiple candidates?
The former. We intend to get it down to do our due diligence, extensive background check, appropriate, depending on who the candidate is. If necessary, do site visitations again, depending on who but to come with a recommendation from the committee to this, and hopefully some of you have had a chance to sit in on some of the interviews. It's not required, but we've already put quite a bit of time in on this, and we will put quite a bit more. So when we come with a recommendation, it will be after lots of due diligence, background checks, verifications, possibly even site visitations. We'll see. That's what we understood our charge to be.
Yeah, and like Jerry said, hopefully, let's just say for the sake of discussion, there's 3 finalists and the interviews are open to the public, and hopefully you can attend and then provide input, which obviously would be important to the final recommendation of the committee. So it's not like all of a sudden you're going to get a name and you haven't had any visibility into the process or the people. And if for some reason the board doesn't approve what the search committee recommends, I mean, I don't know how often that happens, but then I guess we'd have to go back to
Whoever makes that motion just to share the next one.
Yeah, and I will say, also want to thank Jerry for, really showing leadership and taking the process. I know it also is very similar to what you did for Park Township, and hopefully that helps us with keeping it going forward. So
Could I just add one thing I thought of, please? At some point of the process, depending on how all this flows, We're going to be looking for, obviously, input from you people, but also an opportunity to get some informal input from staff and other community leaders. We aren't sure how that's going to work. It's going to depend on timing, who the candidates, finalists are. But we respect the fact that even though I think you got a phenomenal committee, the 6 people, that there's other perspectives that we ought to make sure that we at least give them an opportunity for input to hear. Right?
Thanks, Jerry. All right, Carolyn, so we'll get you back to the Watershed Lawn Care Partner Program that we bumped you out for earlier.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you an update on our lawn care program. I kind of do this once a year around this time. As many of you are aware, we have a lawn care program that partners, the Watershed Project partners with other companies, lawn and landscaping companies throughout the area. And this year we had our annual meeting with them in early March. And at that meeting, we typically go through a few things. We give them updates on the Watershed Project. We gave them an update on hemlock woolly adelgid because that's become a large issue that we're dealing with throughout, especially on the north side of Holland and well, really more into Park Township along the lakeshore with hemlock trees. So hemlock woolly adelgid is a pest that we would really like the lawn care companies to keep an eye on when they're out scouting or working in yards. And then towards the end of the meeting, we talked about them with rebranding the program. This has been something on my mind for a few years now, and as a way to promote the project and promote the program and grow it into the future, I really thought that we needed some language change. Initially, when the program was started in the early 90s, it was around the time when phosphorus fertilizer was still being used. And so when the seal of approval program came out, it was those companies, those first companies that electively said that we will volunteer to not use phosphorus fertilizer when we are out working on lawns. So it was kind of a special program, as in, it wasn't a legally binding thing at the time. But fast forward a few years later, it did end up going through the state that phosphorus fertilizer could no longer be used. It could only be used under certain circumstances that were quite regulated. So the program's changed a bit. The phosphorus is still an issue, but the actual use of phosphorus fertilizer is really not, because they're not using it. So to change it, we wanted to change to a partnership instead of a certification. We also felt that Kelly and I, and we had comments from other companies too, that we can't actually go out and spend time certifying them. We can't go track them down and see if they're doing things correct. That's not logistic. It's not feasible. So we also didn't like the idea of having us kind of have that upper hand of certifying these companies, because we ourselves are not lawn care professionals. So we don't have the expertise to say that they're necessarily doing something the wrong way. So we wanted to change it to be a partnership where they are working and we're trusting in them that the requirements, which are in front of you, there's 9 requirements, we're entrusting that they're doing those things, and that's the same as the program has always been. But as a partnership, we're looking at it to say that they are doing their part to help us with water quality, and in return, we are helping to get the word out on what companies are doing great things. We do have a new company. So the requirements are the same. For participating partners, we do have a new company this year. It's Good Sweet Earth out of the Zeeland area. They're kind of unique. We're really excited to have them on. They specialize in vermiculture, so they have worms that compost and make compost tea, and they actually have this compost tea applications that they can put on lawns. And the idea is that that organic matter that's really complex in nutrients and microorganisms, that when it's put onto a lawn, you can actually create a really great soil structure and biome. So kind of a neat company to have with us, a little different. And also, you don't have to be a lawn care company, because you can also be.
Explain that again.
Yeah.
Do the worms come to the lawn, or the product of the worms come
So
to
the
the lawn?
product of the worms.
Okay.
So essentially in a compost system, and I'm assuming that the worms are eating both, typical lawn organic matter like grass clippings and leaves, but I'm assuming the worms also probably eat vegetable matter and food waste as well. So it's kind of a neat way to get rid of, and to divert from landfill if they are doing it that way. And so it ends up, once you kind of have a concentrated system, there's essentially the juices and the water from everything breaking down that is really nutrient. So I always think when you're steaming vegetables at home and you see that color in the water, you have that extract. And so it's essentially that really nutrient-rich extract that gets put on lawns.
So they have a huge worm colony at their place?
They do, yes. And
I've never heard of that.
I'm going to talk to them because Water Festival is coming up in July, and I think that'd be really fun to have them there and bring the worms. I think kids would really find it very fun.
I've never heard of a worm star, but I think we've got one now.
I think they'd enjoy that. But you also don't have to be a lawn care company to be a lawn care partner. So the City of Holland has signed on to this program as well. I think they've been probably the last 4 years maybe. And so your township halls can also sign on. And if pretty much any of your offices that do lawn care, if you're following these same practices, which many of them are very basic, and we hope that you are, things like taking the grass clippings and making sure they're not by the storm drain, little tasks like that, you can become a watershed partner and advertise yourself as such in that lawn care watershed partnership. And there's also a training website that you can go through or have your staff go through if you want them to learn a bit more. This was developed earlier this year, and it's our MACC Learn website. So we have a couple different types of training portals. And then this one up here, once you get into the program, there's the lawn care and landscaping partners. So this is where we have some training on good practices for lawn care. And then Kelly also created one that's kind of an introduction to the Macatawa watershed as well, which can always be a good part before going into the watershed lawn care piece. But then if you do want to take this and you get into it, there are 3 different components of the lawn care lesson plan, I guess. So there's program background, protecting water, and then program requirements. So the protecting water is more of a scientific background of why we're doing the things we're doing. And then the program requirements is essentially going over the 9 different requirements. If this is something that you are interested in, you can let me know. I can get you the paperwork. It's as simply as saying that, yes, we will do these 9 things. You sign it. There is another component. If you ever contract work out for lawn care services, we would also ask that you contract with a company that's also been no longer certified, but is a partner of ours in the program. And then also, if you are curious about taking or going through the lesson plan or having your staff go through it, who might be taking care of your lawn landscaping, just ask me and we can get you a password and a username set up. And that's, and then for volunteers, so that's it for lawn care. Any questions with that? All right, and then for just a few volunteer events coming up. In April, we have so April 27th, I believe that's Friday, we have our first road stream crossing of the year. This will be our 3rd summer doing the road stream crossing project. We will be inventorying some culverts and the stream bed, kind of, I believe, in the Holland Township area. We're going to be meeting at the MACC office for that one. And then the next day, this Saturday, if I'm sure the weather hopefully will be nice. Fingers crossed. Please join us. We'll be at Dutton Park. A couple of you joined last year for our river cleanup. And so, yep, that'll be great. This in particular is one of my favorite things we do for the river cleanups. It's completely disgusting how much trash there is everywhere, but it feels very satisfying to pick it up. May 18, we have another road stream crossing inventory. May 25th, we'll be out at Smallenberg. This has become our staff work day that we do annually. We like to try to give back with some of our time, so we will be going out to Smallenberg Park, and that's off of 16th Street, and we go there. They have a system of rain gardens, and we go and we pull invasive species, and then also if there's any trash, we'll pick up as well. So please join us for that, and if you're available. And June 2nd, a little bit further out, we'll have our spring macroinvertebrate water bug sampling. It'll be a little different than years past. Before we would do it during a weekday. This is actually going to be a Saturday so that we can pull in more individuals that wanted to do it, but their work schedules didn't allow on the weekday. So we switched it to a Saturday, and it will be from 9 to 1. It will be a training, brief training, going out to the site, collecting bugs, having lunch at Outdoor Discovery Center, and then going through and cataloging which bugs we find. So, all right, that's it.
Thank you, Carolyn. Jumping back, I think, back to administrative issues and the monthly financial report.
Yes.
I think Lisa gets to present her first one.
All right. So before you have the monthly financial report, and you will see that total revenues were at 56.7%. That's line 48. And total expenses are at 37.2%. Are there any questions regarding the financial report?
You want to just explain some of the changes or just some major items?
Yeah, there's...
Some are just pass-through things, right?
Right, some are pass-through. I know that Kelly had informed me that there's a new project, which is the Washington Avenue Green Infrastructure Analysis Project. So that you'll see in line number 79. And yeah, there's nothing else necessarily new compared to last month, other than we're continuing on, completing our projects and continuing on with our budget.
All right, and then I think in the agenda package is summary of the executive committee meetings, if there's any questions on that.
Yeah, so I did want to just tell you all some of the items that we discussed during the executive committee meeting. The very first was the draft fiscal year 2019 budget was presented for review, and the executive committee gave me feedback on that. We are recommending use of a fund balance to address the deficit that Steve had informed us all of before he left. And I think that I'm going to repeat the words that you heard Steve say, and that is to continue into the new fiscal year with our foot on the gas pedal, believing that it's very important to continue the momentum of all the programs that are currently in place. And so that's being recommended for this fiscal year. And then in terms of projects, several projects that Steve had started, Age-Friendly Community Initiative, that has it's basically wrapped up and it's nearing completion, so there's a report available. Emergency Services, we have a new intern that has just started with us several weeks back, and we've asked him to help us with a number of different projects and help with some data analysis. So his assignment is listed here for you to look at emergency services, comparing that with daytime with evening hours and weekends. So to identify any specific gaps in service. And yeah.
What are you referring to, emergency services?
Well, looking at EMT
Okay.
and fire.
All right.
Yep. So this is something that the data is coming in from each of the organizations, and this intern's going to help us process all of that data.
And this project did that come out of the Service Delivery Committee then?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Yep. So I believe you've heard about all the others. Other than the watershed grant reports, Kelly could not be here today. She had to leave. And so I just wanted to let you know that she's been very busy working on the MS4 audit and following up on site visits as well. And then lastly, the Community Enhancement Board, Steve Bultice had been working with that, and project applications are due May 4th. So that once those applications come in, they'll be meeting to review projects for the next round. So, yeah. Are there any questions? All right, thank you.
Thanks. All right, we'll move on to member comments. Todd, thank you for hosting us, and want to fill us in on all the fun stuff happening in Olive Township?
Good stuff, yeah. Welcome to Olive Township. Not a lot happening. It's been pretty quiet, actually, knock on wood. Our planning commission, I think a lot of rural communities probably find the same thing happening. We're getting a lot of solicitation to our farmers on solar panels, wanting to put solar panels across different areas of agricultural ground. And so we're in the process right now. We put a moratorium on any solar in the township until we get our hands around what we really want to see in the township going forward. We should have something out hopefully by the June, July timeline. Have that zoning done. Looking at a couple things with contradictions to what the county wants to do, or the county has the farmland preservation, and then we looking at these folks that want to put in 400 acres, solar panels in different areas. Is that really what we want to see in this area, and is it really the best use of farmland, what we have going? So we're working through that right now. We have our township cleanup this Saturday. Typically, we go through about 10 luggers, 20-yard luggers, and front end loader Bobcat there to help people load their stuff in. It's amazing what you see come through from some of the sites, but it's a good way of helping clean up the township, place at least to get rid of stuff. And other than that, it's about it.
Any other comments from any of the members? Jim?
Yes, thank you. In the past year, we've had some discussion here and elsewhere in the community about the Department of Environmental Quality / Environmental Protection Agency's air monitoring equipment on the border of Laketown and the township and the city of Holland. And of course, they have used that plus a change in standards, to propose some measures to bring us into compliance because of the transport air that we get across Lake Michigan. And at a meeting that we had at Fillmore Township Hall with the DEQ representatives a couple of months ago, and John and of course Ken were there, they said they could not afford more monitors because they're $100,000 a piece, so that they get a better scientific data on the Allegan County as a whole. Well, last week at the Chamber of Commerce's breakfast, Dan Morrison, who has founded a software company in Holland, working with Don Triesinga from Hope College, I'm going to pass this around. They've developed this air monitor, if you can take a look at it, and that has a total cost of $200. and so in the next few weeks, we're going to, Elisa and I and Triesinga and Morrison are going to get together to talk about, what the pluses and minuses of that are. But we hope to propose to DEQ that, maybe they can get a better idea of what the true air quality is in Allegan County by having a few of those monitors spread around. So I pass that along for your information. and questions, if you wish. I don't know much about how that thing's put together. That's why we got Morris and Triesinger, but it is a very interesting thing. And they do use one side by side with the air monitor over in Kent County, which I think is at an MDOT site. I think they told me that, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is a Lowe's bucket included, or
Pardon me?
is a Lowe's bucket included?
Well, it's probably their community contribution, you know.
I wanted to add that I know that Hope College had some pilot projects that they did with the local high school. It is interesting information, and I think it's important moving forward to look at, how this data could be useful. One concern, and I guess it's a caution more than anything, is we have to be careful what we ask for, because if we need to know what we're going to do with the information that we receive from it, and I think being strategic about that is important. Sure. So, yeah, but great to have some additional tools. All right.
Okay. All right. If nobody has any other comments or items to add, just need a motion to adjourn our meeting. Everybody don't raise their hands at the same time. Somebody moved and Nancy seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?